Hello there, I'm Eugene Anangwe. Now, for far too long, there have been a lot of conversations and talk as to why most young people are not as actively involved in the agribusiness value chain as it could be envisioned. In the following CNBC Africa special, we will be able to be having a conversation with those in positions of authority on their role in changing this particular narrative. Here in Rwanda, for example, the average age of those in agribusiness is actually 55 years old. So you can be part of this conversation by simply tweeting us at CNBC Africa, or feel free to tweet me directly at Eugene Anangwe. Gentlemen and lady, of course, it's a very interesting conversation we're going to be having here, and it's on digital innovations to overcome most of those agricultural value chain related constraints. One of those constraints or barriers is incentives. Young people who are here, they mentioned that they want incentives. Also, the issue of low incomes and affordability, for them to be able to do what they do, and the user capability and infrastructure. I want us to touch on those three things, but one by one. Honorable PS, I'm going to start with you on the issue of incentives for young people to overcome their, agriculture-related value chain issues or challenges. How is Rwanda dealing with this issue of incentives? What sort of incentives do we have here that those who are here from other countries can pick or borrow a leaf from Rwanda?
Oh, thank you, Anangwe. It is a great opportunity also to share what we have been going through when working with young entrepreneurs that are mostly interested in working in agriculture. And especially as we say in the beginning, the value chain, it's from farm to fork. That's what we call that value chain. And there's a lot of opportunities within that value chain because there are a lot of actors in that value chain. And what we do, we see some of the young people have innovative ideas that can support these value chains to be more productive and also more efficient. For example, what we do, we try to work with them because they have ideas with other partners, for example, FAO, an example I can give you now. We are trying to develop with them some of the applications that can support farmers, because we know information is something that is really needed. It's a gold, and that's where these young people, they can get some of the when they're developing this platform or they develop these applications. It support them. It support us as the ministry on making this value chain to be more efficient. Also, it is they make this application even accessible to farmers, and that's when farmers get more information of from production to the market.
Let's talk a bit about this same issue, Bwana Andrew, from the ITU perspective. What exactly are you receiving from your end as some of the things that youth want incentivized, and how far can the ITU go to help implement those requests?
From the ITU point of view, incentives are really something that favors you, something that reduces your cost. And what we've been looking at is what actually brings cost to an entrepreneur as far as communication is concerned. And in this respect, for them to be able to develop, communicate, use the internet, have their data stored and mined, you need to have their costs down. So the ITU has taken the initiative with governments, first of all, to remove all taxes on ICT equipment. Secondly, when we talk to the operators or entrepreneurs that say, I want to make my own network, They want to make their own network, but you have to go put a tower here, you have to dig fiber there. So the second thing that we have promoted and actually helped countries create policies and strategies around is infrastructure sharing. And that has gone a long way. I know that some operators didn't really like it, and I've been an operator. I know what that is like. But it is something that does not only bring down the cost to the end user in terms of employing ICTs into their business, it is also something that saves on the environment. Because when you go and dig a second trench, or when you put up another tower, you're polluting the environment. Let me stop there.
Right, you stop there and then we'll pick it up again from there. Chantal, the people in the diaspora, you know, you are actually privileged to have dual nationality and of course also working with the people outside and coming back here in Rwanda. Incentive speaking wise, what exactly do young people want? What exactly do people in agriculture want? And how far do you want those calls that they actually are making pushed for them to actually be implemented?
First thing is advantage we have as diaspora is that we have seen from Western countries that agriculture is smart. So a farmer and an agricultural engineer is as smart as a diplomat, as a lawyer. So promoting the good image of agriculture is first thing. It is so sad to see when we are at the table, we are smart, we think we are doing something good, but we forget who is at the root of what we're eating or drinking. So raising awareness on opportunities in the agriculture sector, showing the youth that you can succeed while you are a farmer is the first step, and digital communication can help that. I remember, even in this country, that we would refer to a farmer as someone who is unemployed. I remember in high school when they were asking what is the occupation of your parents, people would say, my parents are farmers, to say they have no job. Being a farmer is a job, and it's a good job. So secondly, there is the bridging the gap in terms of capacity, skills, innovation, and also knowledge of market.
So what sort of incentives do you want, or what sort of incentives are you looking at in those areas you've just highlighted?
So I will talk on another perspective, is BIS 55, the project we are running with Smart Africa. We have a program called Agribusiness. We provide a one-year incubation program where students who are in last year of university or who are looking for a career opportunity can be incubated as farmers. And after this course, we select them with a jury of senior farmers, and they have given opportunity to receive 1,000 euros or 3,000 euros or 5,000 euros, depending on how they qualified. And we accompany them, connecting them with market in agriculture. So this have shown us that most of the time, it's not that people don't like farming, don't like agribusiness, it's because they are not well informed about what it takes to be an agribusiness, an agri-entrepreneur, and how you can leverage the potential in this area. So
I'll still push you on this because it's important to hear it from you. What sort of messages are you getting on the ground from the people you work with on the ground as far as the things they need their governments and other key stakeholders to do to make it easier for them to actually continue operating?
I will give you an example of my last cohort in Mali. First of all, they lack equipment, infrastructure, For instance, they had a course. We had 10 of them going to Italy to be incubated in a farming industry. When they come back, there is nothing. So they don't have tractors. They have run techniques of irrigation. When they come back, they don't have this equipment. So first thing is maybe to equip the value chain, develop industries. I give you one example again. In Africa, we produce so many fruits. But if you see on our market, what we drink, 50% comes from outside. So how many entrepreneurs transform juices, which is the first, easiest thing to do? Because even with a small machine in your home, you can produce juice. Yeah. Right. So I think from there you see where I'm going. So problems are lack of financial also resources. That is why within the diaspora also we are building a network of entrepreneurs who can put money together to create a diaspora fund that can support entrepreneurs in agribusiness. Yeah.
All right. Let me talk to Henry here, because you are an IT officer, digital innovations at FAO. Personally, you must have gone through specific challenges getting into that field yourself. And you must have had some wishes in certain situations where you'd be like, I wish this was done by certain people in certain sectors to make it easier for those who will follow me behind to be able to find it easier to actually make it as well. What are those things that you can share today that need to be done to be able to make those young innovative people who are pursuing agribusiness through the digital forums or platforms to be able to make it in their area of work?
I'm coming from a background where I was working on user experience, and one of the challenges that I have been facing working in information technology has been always to find actionable content. And especially if you translate this to engaging farmers and try to find incentives for young people in agriculture, it is extremely important that they see the benefit of the information that we try to unlock for them. And this is one of the challenges. So it's not enough to just have a digital solution if the young people don't really see the benefit, what they can get out of it. So what kind of added value services they can provide, for example, on top of this information. So from my own background, this has been always a very hard challenge in IT. Another thing that I would like to add is that even if there's a lot of information available, not all this information is really in the local languages, for example, or it's not really localized content. So we tend to believe that we make a lot of information available, but if you really talk to farmers, and we have been lucky enough to work very closely together with the Ministry of Agriculture in Rwanda on a project here, and we did what we call human-centered design workshop to really talk to the farmers, talk to young people in rural areas and ask them, what is it really that you expect in terms of information? What will benefit you? And this is what we need to inject into digital solutions.
Perfect. It's an important point. Senyu, I mean, talk to me about the Ghana experience as far as incentives are concerned. How does it work down there? And what needs to be done more?
Yeah, so thank you very much. I would look at it from the private sector because that's the sort of angle I'm coming from. I kept smiling when you mentioned user-centered design because you find often there's a big gap when it comes to ICT tools being developed. You know, we sit in our own rooms and, you know, conjure thinking that this is a solution that farmers need. You go to the field, talk to the people who will use it, trying to even understand the price point at which your service can go. You need to talk to the people. And those are things that we learned developing our solution. And it's really, I'm very glad like we're able to highlight this because it's very critical when it comes to developing solutions to solve challenges we have in agriculture in particular. So in Ghana, I would say it cuts across. I'll look at it from internally as a private company, and then also externally looking at customers that we serve within our space. In terms of challenges, as an IT firm, startup, we've been operating for the past 5 years. We face the same, macroeconomic difficulties as well-established businesses have to face. Back then, there weren't so much, ecosystem to support or provide that, leverage where you can, feel safe in a sense that you can try your idea quickly, and then, you fail, you can then, move on to the next, and then try or iterate through your, innovation. It took a lot of hard work and a lot of sacrifice to do that. And I think the narrative is changing now. We're having a lot of, incubator spaces coming on to support young, entrepreneurs to try, grow these ideas, which I think is good. But then we need to contextualize and make them more localized to solve the specific needs. And I think that's also one of the gaps that we are identifying, that it's sort of just taken from the West and then just implanted, which doesn't really solve the problems that we face. So that's on the internal. I'll just probably say quickly on the customer side. It always takes quite a long, especially within the agricultural sector, it takes a long time to help customers understand the solutions that you want, them to, the value proposition you're offering. So you need to be patient, and this is where a young, a guy who's graduated from school and looking to, establish, that patience isn't there. And so those are some of the challenges that I would say, yeah.
So we need to have digital solutions that speak the language of the people that they are targeted for.
Yeah. Yeah.
I tend to feel that this panel here is more for young people or you who are out there to actually ask them the real issues that you really want. I want to avoid making it this club of us here, and I want it to be more of you asking those questions, because here we have the government. There's the PS, Permanent Secretary himself is here. So if you're out there and you really want to ask a pertinent question, you can actually ask. The ITU is actually here as well.
The issue of cybercrime, because this is a challenge. We're trying to reach out to develop these platforms. Are there policies or initiatives to support this industry? How does ITU intend to support the African development of these initiatives in combating cybercrime? The second question, I don't know who's going to take it up, maybe from FAO. What initiatives are there? Because we are targeting, for example, our platform, Farmers Market Zambia, caters for even our small-scale farmers. Some of these are located in rural areas, and the challenge is illiteracy levels among some of these farmers. How do we develop these platforms to ensure that even these are able to benefit, even those rural-based youths are able to benefit from such initiatives? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Andrew, I think you can quickly take it while it is still hot. The issue of cyber crimes, and these innovations that are still happening, they are happening in the cyber spaces. How does ITU ensure that the safety of the users and even the creators of these applications?
Cybersecurity is a big issue. There are those that think of themselves as entrepreneurs like you, but their business is actually hacking you. So it is just as vibrant as on your side. What is ITU doing? Number one, because you have to use carrot and stick, let me talk about the stick. We work with member states in Africa and actually elsewhere, because we are all over. We work on cyber legislation as part of the ICT regulations in the country. We have worked with countries to develop the cybersecurity law, private or personal data protection, electronic transactions, and law against cyber threats. So that if there is anybody that thinks that they're an entrepreneur in that field and commits the crime, there is law that is there to prosecute them. That's number one. Number two, we work with the same countries to develop computer incident response teams. And these are installations that will detect any cyber attacks that are coming into the country. This country has one, and actually we are gaining momentum as in all countries having this. I spoke to the Minister of DRC yesterday. He said he wanted theirs yesterday because they have actually been under attack, not small attacks, to the central bank, to the ministries. So that's a part. Thirdly, every year we run what we call a regional cyber drill, where people like you that are interested are already in the business and they want to try themselves out. We run a cyber drill where you can go and have a simulated attack, and you can learn how to respond to it or tell others how you have responded to your own. We can take this offline so that I don't take too much of his time, right. But it is indeed an interesting area, and that is critical for people that are getting into business or even governments.
Right, perfect. Henry, there was a question also for you on the issues of literacy levels and stuff to do in that area. What sort of answer can you give him?
Okay, so to answer your question on how to get these services also available in rural areas for people that maybe are illiterate and do not know how to relate to these services, there's several ways that you could tackle this problem. One is, for example, by providing voice services. So to use the same kind of information that you would provide through a digital service in the voice of by means of voice messages. Another way is to use really visual language, so people can really relate to what information they are looking at, using images, using nice pictures, for example, that are very close to the things that people in rural areas can understand if they are not literate. So there's several ways that you can do that. Another way that we are doing in FAO, for example, is by use of the Dimitra clubs, for example, that are targeting young women also in rural areas. So maybe one of the leaders of the Dimitra clubs, they have access to these digital solutions, and they can then share this information with their communities that maybe in some cases are not literate. So it's really to try and use all the different channels that you have available to take this information digitally as close as possible to people in rural areas.
Andrew, finance, he says, is actually one of the challenges. I mean, everybody has talked about this. It's actually the beginning of everything most of the time after the idea comes. People with digital solutions, digital solutions that are going to help solve some of these agricultural issues or opportunities that are there, do have those kind of challenges for access to finance to advance their projects. How can the ITU help here?
Again, something that we've been advocating with member states. It's called Universal Access Funds. Universal Access Funds are funds that are collected from operators that have been making a lot of money from us using their services. They collect money, and the objective is to extend services to where they are not. My feeling is that those same funds could be used to at least provide the necessary infrastructure in the places where these people are, alleviating some of the necessary cost so that they have at least the infrastructure in place. But secondly, I want to go back to the question that was asked of people that are not literate. Digitization doesn't need that you actually read. You can actually have be visual, like my colleague from FAO was saying. You can have digitized videos that will describe and teach you a process, and listen to instructions that are voice instructions. Now, I'm not encouraging people to remain literate. So these processes have to go in parallel, that you can have adult classes, but also be productive, because the education about digitization of a certain process can be done visually. I also want to bring the age-old idea of community centers. You have one community center, you have a large screen TV, you have educational videos every night from different areas. These people learn, they are productive after 1 month. They are illiterate, but they are not stupid.
Yes, Andrew, these are good ideas, but sadly we don't see them implemented. Why? That's my worry. Most of the time I hear these great, brilliant ideas, but the challenge is when you go on the ground, these things are not there. I mean, how do we move from just, preaching wine and then drinking water?
I think that's probably not a question for me, but here is another proposal. The technology that we have on mobile phones now allows us to create savings small by small. You can have 50 francs from everybody in this room. At the end of the day, you have thousands of francs, and all you have to do is take it from your mobile money. And that's not a lot of money. Banks, when they see groups of people that have saved a little money, they get very interested. And therefore, given the facilities that we now have on mobile phones for incremental small credit savings, you can actually create something for yourselves and use it as a basis to get the bigger banks or the bigger, or even governments get interested when they see the group of people that is serious.
Right, let's now take a very short break, but when we come back, the way forward in engaging young people in the agribusiness value chain. Don't go too far. Most young people have these brilliant ideas, tech projects that don't go beyond the prototyping. Even just getting to the prototype part, they have no finances to actually go beyond that. How can they creatively source for funding to be able to move more stages?
I do think that most of the time it's not even the issue of financing per se. It's also know how to use the money you receive, because there are so many programs around the continent where young entrepreneurs receive funds. But once they have received $30,000, one go to Dubai and buy a car, and then the business is over. So it is about accompaniment of their project, because being an entrepreneur is not only having the money, is being innovative, sourcing the market, and also having connections. So I think that there is a lot of to do beyond financing. So in terms of what we can do as the diaspora, we have started within the African Diaspora Network in Europe some initiative that enable diaspora members who want to invest even a small amount of money in a business in Africa to contribute, to move beyond the idea of just financing big projects. Because in agriculture, you can even start a business with 100 euros. Then how do you grow? Because it's a matter of growing as well. So I think that there is a need for platform, for accompaniment, for also creating more opportunity for entrepreneurs, youth entrepreneurs with ideas to get connected with investors or any other person with interest in their project.
Right.
So
that is what you would say on that. Henry, I mean, she says most, if given money or financing, they would want to quickly jump to buy these fancy cars. But let's talk about those who are reasonable, those who would not want to do that. They have followed the right channels and they have just gotten stuck, you know, financing their projects, their tech ideas to move beyond where they are. What sort of simple advice would you give them?
So one of the things that we're actually doing at this very moment as a side event of this conference is Hack Against Hunger. So we have very talented young social entrepreneurs and social entrepreneurs working now 24 hours to try and transform their ideas into real value. And they're doing it here at ICT Chamber, just a few miles from here. And these people, like you said, they have brilliant ideas. These are young people, they know the challenges that they're facing every day, and they want to transform their ideas and to make them into reality. And for example, by making sure that they can participate in Hack Against Hunger, there are 8 teams of 3 people from 7 different countries in Africa participating at this moment in this event. And this is a way for them to not just get access to finance, but to pitch their ideas. And these ideas are very good. So what we should try to do is to incubate these ideas, to really give them the opportunity to make this a reality, and not just once. Like I heard somebody say after the conference, what do we do? Does it all end? No, this should be a continuous effort where we really try to help them make this, transform these ideas into real value. And there's a role for the UN system there, but there's also a role for government, for private sector. We just should give them the trust that they deserve to really solve the problems that they're facing in rural areas.
So in addition to what Henry said, I think in as much as we look into the international bodies to help, government to help, we as entrepreneurs also have to start, doing our bit. We can't just sit, wait, else then you don't have a business. You just have to close shop. So you, as I said, start with baby steps. What is the critical need that the producers you are targeting need that you can solve within the interim? Your success become a light for government to come and talk to you, say, okay, we can support you in this. But if you just, throw your hands up in the air expecting help, I'm sorry. If you want to run a business, that's not the attitude you have to take. You need to have a mindset to, break through walls. Where there are no solutions, you find solutions. I think that's what has been the success for us as a company, because we face those same challenges, but we have to find solutions around it. And now we are in a position where we can actually engage with government, with businesses, because they've seen we have proven that we can, solve problems. So I would also throw the challenge to you as an entrepreneur, not to just give up because you don't have information.
Probably you was targeting all the ministries across Africa. What I'm trying to say that since information that are ready to, the information that we find that they are not compromising the security of the country, we provide that to young people that want to develop these kind of applications. This is something, it's a done deal. But the challenge is sometimes they come and they want some information that you think it's not that we want to get information about farmers or the details. Sometimes you have to think about twice what the use of these information. And that's why sometimes we put like some of the standards to make sure that, and then when they find that, if they thought that they're thinking that we are kind of cutting short their programs. But any information that is not really compromising the security of the country really is available for us. We provide that.
Right. Probably if someone is wondering out there, isn't it possible also for governments or holders of any information to go ahead or step ahead of the entrepreneurs and offer this information that these entrepreneurs would at one point need even before them coming to ask? I mean, why don't we do such things?
Yeah, well, most of the time there's a platform where we send up on the website any information that they need, it's there. It's a matter of when you're requesting this information, sometimes they go even further, they want more. Because there's some public information we provide, but the others, you need to get some of the permission to use that. That's the way we go.
Right.
Yeah.
And we are talking about the issue of access to data that will help techpreneurs to flourish in the agribusiness.
Absolutely. I was going to talk about this later, but now that we are there, the issue of open data policies is very important, because this situation is going to get worse. With the advent of Internet of Things, smart cities, the drones we have in the sky, they have masses and masses of data. And this is what is referred to as big data. Now, there has to be a deliberate effort to make this data usable, to make this data safe, and to make this data queryable. Right? So that if you have a drone that has been going over your field and it has collected massive amounts of data, there is business. There's extra business for you guys. And this is called data analytics, big data analytics. To be able to take that data, take your data structures defined with not only the government, but with your colleagues, the users, what kind of data would we need from this kind of setup? And structure that, analyze, and deposit it there. Now, it's up to the government to have a policy on what is easily accessible or what is accessible under agreement. Because, again, you've got carrot and stick, you've got law that prevents misuse of data. So if somebody thinks their business needs it and they come and request it and they can actually follow the procedures and sign for it, then you have no right not to give it to them.
Henry, someone has been checking out your systems and they're finding it difficult to access certain things, and the information there is not really, what sort of response would you give to those who would like to get into, plugging into what you do as FAO to be able to build on their tech projects?
Okay, so this is actually a very subject which is very close to my heart, and I fully endorse what you have been saying. I mean, we're having APIs, we're making them available, we're trying to make sure that that as much as possible our data is available for people to build these digital value-added services on top of them, and to create also businesses out of them. This is extremely important. They are available, and we're trying to get as much data out there as we can. So we're slowly adding information to that, and I strongly believe that this is a way that we can engage with like, for example, in a hackathon with young developers, but not just software developers. It's also the entrepreneurs themselves that can engage with the data. So one thing is to make it available. Second thing, which is maybe even more important, is to also communicate what we have available. So also the entrepreneurs, they know that they can really get something out of it. And this is something that we should do more. And this is also part of our digital innovation ecosystem, to try and make this information more readily available and to communicate more about it.
Right. Perfect. I want to move on to the panelists. Just one more question, and probably we can start winding up. And this question goes to you, Chantal. Most of the time when we look at the pictures during the photo session of African leaders, when they come to meet, you'd always have to zoom in after that picture is taken to spot a lady. Yeah? Even on this panel right now, if someone was to take a picture from way back there, we'll have to zoom in to be able to, at least you're wearing red, and it will be easier to recognize you. What am I driving at? I'm driving at the issue of women-led tech startups and women inclusion in technology. What should governments do? What should private sector companies do to be able to fast track the involvement of ladies in this industry?
I will just start by giving data. I was leading this morning in the agriculture sector. Actually, women are more than 70% of the workforce. So it is very important to target them as a potential actor. Secondly, I think there is a need to build more instruments to reinforce the enabling environment for them to acquire skills, to access information, to access also the entrepreneurship skills. I think that not only for the ladies, but generally speaking, there is something that we need to tackle around the continent is really building the mentality of entrepreneurship and fostering the mindset of investors. If you see, you read many of success stories of entrepreneurs, many of them have started from nothing. And what they have in common, they keep growing, keep investing in their skills, keep investing in the self-development. So I think that most frequently on the continent, me included, we do think that when you have an idea, the government shall give you money. And government are not there to give you the money. They are there to help you with regulations, with any other instrument. So first thing I think we need to build sustainably is the mindset of entrepreneurship. So it goes also for gender-related issues, because many of women think that they cannot be successful entrepreneurs. So if you look at the farming sector as well, they keep working on the roots, so they don't go beyond. So we can help them by providing with them improved information and awareness on the opportunities that are there. And also I think the mentorship is key.
It's important.
Yeah.
Right. Andrew, we seem to be leaving our women folk behind. We seem to be leaving them and saying, you stay in the farm as we handle the rest up here. ITU perspective, what do we do to be able to change this?
I have a lot to say about it because I'm passionate about it. We could take the rest of the time just talking about this, but we are not. A couple of things. There's the entrepreneurship side, women-led tech companies, but there's also even regular employment in these fields. There isn't a job now that doesn't require expertise in ICTs. Now, here's what we propose and what we are doing now. Today, as we speak, in my station in Addis Ababa, we have launched and started with our partners, UN Women, what we're calling African Girls Coding for Change. It's a boot camp. It's a coding boot camp. It will hold these girls incommunicado for 2 weeks, and they will come out with enough knowledge to know whether they want this field, to continue in that field and develop themselves as techpreneurs or get employment. What that does is two things. These are young girls that are 18 and just getting into college, and you are trying to give them direction on where to go in order 4 years later to be able to break that glass ceiling. But the second part of this project is now saying, okay, we can't do much about these. We've done what we can. What about the ones that are now getting into primary school? So we are working with ministries of education and ministries of ICT to sit together and with whatever help we can provide, and now I'm pulling UNESCO in it, to develop curricula that include coding and ICT in general from that age. So by the time that the age of my 9-year-old, they are ready to go. But thirdly, we also encourage those that are already in the field to compete, come in these hackathons. We've got something called GemTech at the international level, where they can come and compete and be encouraged and win prizes and get picked up by angel financiers.
If you have another burning issue, is your chance again. Let's go. Your name.
Thank you. So my question goes to the PS, specifically in Rwanda. Who is training our farmers on digital tools? Do our farmers know what is digitalization? What are digital tools? Secondly, if they know, how many of them can have access to digital tools? As you know, most of them, they are small farmers who are only like growing crops for like a domestic consumption or like a local market. So if they say that they produce, it means they won't be able to buy digital tools. So who will be providing them the digital tools?
We use different kind of imagery or voice, but what mostly we are trying to use is more images. And we have extension services that are providing these services within at the rural area. And what we do, we have been working with different partners where we have different small projectors that we can take around and within this difficult community, because we have extension structure called Twigire Muhinzi Morozi. That's where all the information we want to provide to farmers go through. And we have this kind of, it's localized, and also it's meant in Kinyarwanda, and then they can understand and they can see images what you're using.
We aim at helping the community, the rural community, to be able to use their gadgets, be it a feature phone or any other device they can access, to be able to use them in whatever business they are doing, including farmers. So that program targets even people in cooperatives, say a cooperative of farmers. They are able to go and train them on how to use ICT in whichever field of farming they are focused in. So that's one of the programs, and we hope to have the program, it has started in 5 districts so far, and we are extending to other districts as well. Thank you.
Yeah. Price is always a big issue, but then there's always a way to meet your customer at their point of need. And as I explained earlier, maybe information, for example, is not something a farmer may be willing to pay or would afford. Alternative options you can look at is who can probably subsidize a farmer, because at that point where he or she is not having enough income to pay for the service. But supporting either through subsidy program where you can work through other donor or government to provide some IT extension, or I don't know, you're able to help the farmer understand the benefits of using the technology. But beyond that, I also want to I actually want to, okay, I'm losing a word, but then the notion that farmers don't have money to pay is something that is wrong. I'll tell you. If it's of value, they will pay for it. And that's something that we have seen and we have tested and we're working with. So if a farmer knows that this is value for him, he will pay for it. They are smart, and we shouldn't, that notion of farmers are poor, I think we should change that narrative. Yeah.
I'll take that as sort of your closing remarks because of time. Henry, what sort of closing remarks would you want to give? Where do we move from here? How do we deal with the challenges facing the digital innovators in order to encourage them even more to get into agribusiness?
I think that digital innovation is really about transforming ideas into value. And this is not something that can be done by one actor alone. this should be done by many actors. There's a role for the UN system there. There's a role for national governments, for private sector. And it's really to believe in the ideas that are put forward by young entrepreneurs, and to incubate them and to make sure that their ideas can be accelerated, to provide them with an ecosystem of solutions that can really make a difference in their lives.
Chantal, where do we go from here?
My first recommendation, I think that we, beyond the ICT side, I think we need really to invest in vocational training for agriculture sector, and I will emphasize also that the fact that one of our programs is tackling this gap by providing trainings for university, because we go to schools and find their students and provide them with information on agriculture, and 50% of our program is also internet-based, because some of the material are not available on the continent, so we go to resource programs outside of the continent, in Asia, in Europe, and in the US, to show young students or young entrepreneurs that farming is something trendy and you can be rich by being farmer.
Right.
So.
Okay.
I do just invite any young entrepreneurs who would like to join our program to get in touch with me, and I provide more information on how you can access and get involved.
Perfect. Andrew, if people who came all the way to this conference waiting to hear the big announcement from ITU on digital innovations, what is that you want to promise them that they'll go home feeling happy, that they feel accomplished, this conference was accomplishing for them?
Before I get there, I want to scandalize you. I want to tell you about the 3 biggest African scandals. Scandal number 1 is that for a continent that is this rich in its soil, they say you can stand here and throw seeds without looking and they will grow. We have the biggest land mass of anybody. We still have people or countries that have famine. Scandal number 2, that there can be surplus maize in East Africa and Zambia people are actually dying. That intercontinental trade that is not going on. Number 3, that we actually have stunted children for lack of food or for lack of nutritious food. Scandal number 4, that we actually spend billions and billions of dollars importing food from Europe, from the US. Now, the reason why I wanted to scandalize you is actually to incentivize you, because everything that I have told you are problem areas around which you can innovate.
Okay. Thank you so much, Andrew. PS, what sort of promise are you making? What sort of commitment are you making from a government perspective?
Okay. I'm not going to talk about commitment. Is always we are always there to support any innovation coming from young people, because that's the source of, it's a labor source. We need these are resources we need to use for the scandal he talked about. It's not about them. It's about us who were there before. Yeah, because now it's the opportunity for them. We are showing them there's opportunities. And there is, since we are still spending like $35 billion every year for imports, and if we continue this in this trend, by 2025, we'll be 110 billion. That means this is an opportunity for young people that's now we are coming to you to help to rebuild again Africa with these resources we have. As government, we are committed to continue working with them and bring, when they get these new ideas, that's why we need this kind of platform. What I want to come from that one is why can't we have this platform united to how, coming back to the question he asked, how can we put together these ideas and making sure that we support each other? Then he has a solution. Instead of reinventing the wheel, he can find another, somebody who has been doing that, and they can connect together. That's what I wanted to get from you.
Right, before I let you go, PS, I mean, we have a Made in Rwanda campaign, and we've seen it working as far as the push that the government has been pushing and private sector to help consume and even promote locally made products. How is this working in the tech industry? Because we have young innovators who complain that we come up with tech innovations, ideas that can help the government in one way or another, but most of the time, government is not consuming from us. They go and believe and trust in other people from outside. They take the ideas, yet that solution, I had it. How is it in the tech industry, Made in Rwanda?
I'm going to give my example on our side as the Minister of Agriculture, what we developed like Isoko. That was made in Rwanda. That's something we discussed. This is also what we are working with FAO, this made in Rwanda, though we have support, but mostly it's made in Rwanda. And these are the things we are trying to emphasize on, making sure that everything, these ideas coming from Rwanda.
Right.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much, our panelists. Let's give them a round of applause. Well, that's it for this CNBC Africa special. We've been touching on the role of those in positions of authority across Africa in engaging young people in agribusiness. Do stay with us and enjoy the rest of your viewing. As always, I'm Eugene Anangwe, signing off.